I'm Jennifer Keenan, and I have the board members go and introduce themselves, please. I'm Robin Ryman.
My name's Dave Brandenberger.
Jeff Wyndham.
Debbie Skipchinsky.
Kay Stevenson.
Eleanor Baronet.
And we have two board members who are absent tonight, George Zirkle and Cindy Kaufman. Our alternative, Steve Messner, is also out this evening. And one other board member, Paige Hewell, I haven't heard that she's not coming, so she may be popping in a little bit later. But we'll go ahead and get started with adopting the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved, the agenda is adopted. Speaking of, this is Paige.
Hello.
Welcome, Paige. We're just getting started. I'd like to start by recognizing Councilman Alex Wan, who is here. So please, Alex, welcome to our meeting.
She's like, where'd you get the agenda? Good evening, everyone. Alex Wan, Atlanta City Council District 6. Got a couple of things I wanted to share with you. First of all, and I know some of them are on the agenda, so Jess, I hope I'm not stealing some of your thunder. First of all, I want to thank everybody who went out and voted last Tuesday, and we successfully passed both the city's MARTA referendum as well as the T-SPLOST referendum. So I think they're going to go a long way in terms of continuing the investment in transit and our transportation infrastructure in the city. I think one of the things that we've been talking about at City Hall with the MARTA passage and the strength of the passage is that hopefully it will, a lot of other neighboring jurisdictions will be watching that to see how we did before they would consider or contemplate potentially initiating them themselves, specifically DeKalb County. So hopefully, given how successful ours was and the rest of unincorporated Fulton County, hopefully they'll look at doing that as well. Don't know the timing on the T-SPLOST, but it's the way it works is we're not bonding against that money. It will just be wrapped up into the annual infrastructure spend that the city does. So just know that it will be phased over the next 5 years. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and I know this is on her item, was the replacement for Park Atlanta contract. Council passed that last Monday. And there were a number of things in it. I know that our district has struggled a lot with the original Park Atlanta contract. But there were a number of things in this new contract that gave me a little more comfort with outsourcing parking enforcement. I just wanted to run those by you. First of all, the guaranteed revenue is increasing from $5.5 million to $7 million a year. And that is not, I want to dispel this rumor that that's because we're going to add 1,000 more metered parking spaces throughout the city. That is not true. In fact, there is an addendum that we added to the legislation in the agreement that explicitly says that no additional spaces will be added without council action. What that's coming from is we did a review of the finances of the original Park Atlanta contract and just assessed that we were basically leaving too much money on the table for the contractor. So without doing anything, just kind of keeping the same level of parking meter revenue as well as ticketing, the contractor comfortably could still maintain $7 million a year, or not maintain, but increase it to $7 million a year. A couple other things on top of that is the revenue split over $13.5 million, so that gives them $6.5 million to cover all of their expenses, which we thought was reasonable, are designed to de-incentivize excessive writing of tickets. So basically, the contractor doesn't have any motivation to write a ton of tickets because they're not going to get a whole lot of the revenue above that threshold. The other thing too is there are penalties built in for bad tickets that are written as well as broken equipment. So that was another thing that we heard from the public in terms of usage. The other thing is the appeals process is being brought in-house to the city. That was one of the things that I'm grateful for because previously you basically had to go to court in order to resolve the issue. And now the city maintains some decision in that. And then finally, there's a 30-day out. and all we have to do is pay the unamortized cost of the technology improvements that they're investing in. And then those technology improvements will include paying by phone, kind of like you do at Quad City Market. You'll get a notification as your meter's running out, and you can add money to the meter from where you're at. Now, overall parking management, that conversation, council's kind of reserved the right that we're going to revisit that. And what I mean by that is that looking at the number of metered parking spaces in the city, where they're at, and particularly possibly opening up the opportunity to shift metered parking spaces to other locations. I know Virginia-Highland, the commercial corridor has been hit pretty hard. The businesses have been hit hard. There are a number of buildings and developments that have gone up over the last 7 to 8 years that are probably more conducive and more appropriate for metered parking spaces around that. So I'm hoping that when we open that conversation, we'll be able to maybe share the burden, or maybe shift the burden of metered parking spaces to more appropriate places in the city. The last thing I wanted to mention is about the Monroe Drive Complete Streets project. It appears that the next community meeting is going to be January 26th. That's not confirmed yet, but that's a date that they're running by me, Councilmember Hall, and Councilmember Archibald. And it's my understanding that at that meeting, before that meeting, hopefully there'll be some alternatives that will come out for evaluation. They have acknowledged that Grady High School, that location is not going to be big enough and not the proper format to solicit input. So we're looking for a location for that meeting as well. It most likely will be closer downtown rather than out in our community, but that's okay. I mean, if it makes for a better conversation, then we'll do what we need to do. That's all I had to report tonight. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. And Jess, I'm sorry.
Alex, is there any chance that, you know, with this new parking system, that we might get some like free weekends, like once every 2 or 3 months, and that we could kind of promote around the neighborhood? I think the business would appreciate it. You know, for those of us who end up being the streets where everybody parks because they don't want to pay, would probably appreciate some of that too, especially if we're having people over and they can't find some place to park. So, I mean, it would be nice to think about that just as a kind of goodwill gesture after a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth with Park Atlanta.
I mean, that's an interesting idea. I'm happy to bring it up when we open this conversation up. Quite frankly, I'd like to get rid of it.
Well, me too, but
As the
I
long-term
take that
solution.
as a nice halfway.
I think there may be some trading on going on. Uh-oh, Jack.
Well, I mean, I'm puzzled. How does the raising the revenue for the new group with a new name and many of the same folks disincentivize anything other than, right, and not, the rates aren't going up, so only would increase the revenue, the rates aren't, it's a greater volume of tickets. So how did, I didn't understand that when I was downtown listening to that discussion, and I don't understand it
So
now.
basically, Park Atlanta was making more profit than they really should have, and in terms of, they covered their costs. And we thought the city's posture was that, we thought, quite frankly, that revenue should be coming to us, not to a contractor. I don't know the specific audit or analysis numbers, but basically someone else, and as this contract hopefully should prove, could come in, anticipate the same amount of revenue and still make comfortably enough money while still paying the city $7 million. And again, at the top end, every incremental dollar over $13.5 million, they don't get a whole lot of that if it's actually written in the contract. Does that make sense?
That part does make sense. It doesn't fully, I still don't, if you're issuing volume of tickets, they've just got to go up, and I think the effect we're interested more in is not how it gets split up, but the impact it has down here.
But basically, instead of Park Atlanta being able to take an extra $1.5 million, or the new contractor, they're obviously making, the new contractor's making enough money to make it interesting for them.
So once they get to a certain point, like after that, do they continue to make money?
Some,
on that?
but it's heavily skewed in the city's favor. The city would get the incremental income over after they hit 13 million in total revenues.
Right.
Above that, it's heavily skewed.
So that's where they get disincentivized.
Right.
Okay.
So can I suggest that when you're city council president, that there not be, that these contracts not be set to come up the year before election, which is really postpones the impact of it, and I think it would perhaps engage more council members in the process if they were answering that a year before. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, and you know that I was very vocal about us wanting to do this sooner rather than later. Yeah. I mean,
So how is it so far off that we were paying them that much, too much profit?
exactly. Exactly.
Nobody studied it before they gave them the contract.
Let's just ask for it back.
Yeah. No, that was, there were a lot of criticisms about the Park Atlanta contract, and that was written during the Franklin administration. And that's the problem. If you're gonna outsource something and you don't scope the project out right and do all the analysis, you're gonna get stiffed. And that's exactly what happened. It was done on kind of the residents and visitors in metered spaces. So, you know, I think through the process, we learned the mistakes that we made, and then kind of went back through with a smarter RFP. And hopefully we've gotten a much stronger contract. Again, I think I get the most comfort from the fact that there's a 30-day out. Whereas last time, the out was outrageous. I mean, it basically was, I think, like a $12 million payment that we had to make to Park Atlanta. And it just kept us in there until the bid ran. So.
When do they expect to award the contract?
We've already approved it. We approved it last Monday, so I don't know where it is in the execution phase, but I think the mayor was pretty motivated to get this one, get Park Atlanta out and get this new contract in. So, yeah.
What's the name of the company?
SP Plus Parking. I don't know where they're based out of, but it is a joint venture again. The only contractor that they carried over from the last team was ATO, the towing company. But the enforcement is a new entity. So hopefully we'll have better experiences.
Are they gonna brand it different?
Yeah.
With a different?
Yeah. In fact, let me see. I don't think they've settled on anything, but I think it may be ATL Park. I think
Oh, plus.
I know.
So different.
I know.
One last
Oh,
question.
stick on the pig.
What would have been wrong with lowering the rates for that $2 million for the parking instead of the city?
So the city's posture on parking is there is a purpose for metered spaces, right? I mean, there is this notion of wanting to, you know, the retailers want to turn spaces, and you don't want them to end up becoming permanent parking spaces for folks. So there is a science and a motivation behind it. You know, quite frankly, I think our parking rates compared to other cities our size are actually lower than most metropolitan areas. So I don't know that ever came into the conversation for those two reasons.
Okay.
But I think what we are considering as well is revisiting this notion of parking zones and what the maximum amount, the maximum parking time could be. Is it 2 hours or 4 hours? And then the hours. There are some zones in the city where parking ends earlier in the evening. Some are 5 days a week, some are 7, some are 6 days a week. So I think those are the levers we can play with going forward.
Okay, are there any additional questions?
Well, I just have the one, because you hit it on the part that, I mean, parking policy is a social policy. And so I like the opt-out, and I would really like it if the council acknowledged that in its next piece here, that that's the overt reason to have a parking policy. If there weren't too many people to park, we wouldn't need one, but there are, so we do, yada, yada. And so the opt-out is great, and I hope it's considered if needed, that's all.
Anything else? All right, thank you all.
Thank
We'll
you.
go to the morning side.
Oh,
yeah,
Are you leaving?
I'm sorry?
Are you gonna stay or are you leaving?
No, I've got the morning side, lunch
Okay.
park meetings going on at the same time.
Then I wanted to bring something up that I've talked to you about before. It's JJ's Bourbon Bar, and we're gonna talk about it, I think, later.
Okay.
But that is getting worse, not better.
The noise
I know
issue?
that you would talk to them or talk to the police about it, and I don't know if they're here.
And I've had a couple conversations with the police about it.
Okay, if you could, and I just wanted to say it before you left.
Okay. Yeah, and noise issues are challenging across the city with mostly bars and clubs, but some restaurants have started kind of pushing the limit on that. I will admit that the city's noise ordinance is weak at best. And the other challenge is having a police force that's willing to go out and enforce it, because you have to do it with noise meters. And we only have X number of noise meters across the city, and only some are trained. So there's a constant kind of push and pull. It's more kind of being pushed away from actual enforcement of it. all we've been doing on council, I mean, and I've been doing it, and I've gotten Mary Norwood to help as well, is just whenever we get these instances, we just pound the police on it. I'm not sure it gets us anywhere, but at least the awareness is there. And as much as I hate saying this, when it happens, just call 911 and report the noise violation so that there's a record of it. The police may not respond, but then we can potentially build up a case or at least use that as leverage against an operator. So
There should be hundreds of calls.
I know, I mean, there should be, but again, if we get those sorts of volumes, then it gives us an opportunity to demonstrate.
If they're there, if you need that record,
Okay.
I guarantee that.
Fair enough. Anything else? All right, y'all, have a good night, appreciate it.
Thank you. So, we have another guest who just came in. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello, wow, you're right in time. Right? Hello everyone, my name is Ali Amin Carter. I work for Councilmember Andre Dickens, who's your post 3 at-large council member. He has to live in 9, 10, 11, and 12. Is everyone aware of how the at-large seats work? Pretty much, no? Okay, well, I'll explain it. So you have 12 district reps, you have 3 at-large reps, you have your 1, 2, and 3 at-large. So 1 has to live in districts 1, 2, 3, or 4. 2 has to live in 5, 6, 7, or 8. And then 3 has to live in 9, 10, 11, or 12. The reason they really do this is just for appointment purposes. A lot of the appointments at city council, and also to give extra assistance to the district reps. Appointments at city hall, such as commissions and things of that nature, they're grouped. So they would be grouped in post 1 group. So post 1 group, that means that districts 1, 2, 3, and 4 have a say-so on who gets appointed to this commission or this board, or whatever the case may be. But I always like to tell you that you have 5 council members, not just 1. Would hate all the work to be on Alex, but you also have Alex, you have your 3 at-large reps, you also have your council president. So please use us all. So I don't really have anything to announce. I'm just coming to listen. I was here maybe 3 months ago. Councilmember Dickens sits on, he's the chairman of Community Development, Human Resources. You may hear it as CDHR, but he's the chairman of that committee. He also sits on the Finance Committee, which Alex chairs, and Transportation. And with the appointment of chair to CDHR, he sits on the boards of Invest Atlanta, the Beltline, and the Center for Civil and Human Rights. So that's about it. We had some great legislation that we're working on right now as far as housing and affordable housing. Some of you all may know about that. When he first came in, he also formulated a joint committee with APS. There was no type of communication between APS and the city of Atlanta and city council, well, city of Atlanta, let's say city council. So he passed some legislation where we have a joint committee. There was only supposed to be 4 meetings. They've had 8 so far. They discussed everything from deeds to safe passage to school. So that's it, but if there's any questions,
Any
comments
questions?
or concerns, I'd love to share my cell phone number. I now have a new cell phone number, so please use it. I always say you pay for it, so you might as well use it if you need it. And I try to do my best to get things done. I mean, I always say I get cats out of trees. It's a little deeper than that, but if you need me, please use me. So the number is 404-227-3295.
Thank you so much,
Okay,
Ali.
thank you as
Appreciate you
well,
coming.
guys.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the vote on the 2016-2017 committees. And attached to the agenda is the list of our current committees and current members. And there's also the contact information for each committee. So if there's a particular issue that you're interested in, if you're certainly interested in volunteering and helping, you can contact the committee at their email address or contact the chair for additional information. But we have a very strong and robust committee structure and committee program within VHCA, and it's a wonderful way to get involved in a particular issue that you're interested in. So I'd like to call a vote on the committee members and chairs on the proposed committees and chairs document that's attached to the agenda.
Could I, Robin, we did not get this changed.
That's fine, you can leave it there, that's fine.
Okay.
And I will say that these names are the committees as they stand now. Other people may certainly join in the next year, and other people may shift around. So this is not a stagnant list. So again, just because you don't see your name on there doesn't mean you don't have an opportunity to join a committee at some point. So can I have a motion to approve the committees and chairs on the proposed committees and chairs document?
Motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Great, so moved. The proposed committees and chairs is now I guess the word proposed is no longer there, it's the committees and chairs. And this document is reflected on our website as well. The next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report, and our treasurer, George Zerfel, is excused, is not here today. And he provided his report to me, so I will provide it to you all for him. As most of you probably know, the Virginia-Highland Civic Association owns North Highland Park, and it was purchased several years ago with a mortgage, as most property is. The current balance on the mortgage is $184,312, and based on the payment schedule, if we do not make any advanced payments, any additional payments, if we just make the regular payments, the park will be paid off in full in August 2019. And we pay about $66,000 a year on the fixed payments for the park. So it's a significant expense. But luckily, we're on track to pay that off in the next few years. George also wanted me to report that our 2016 revenue looks ahead of the 2016 budget, so that's good. However, on the flip side, our expenses are also ahead of the budget. So we don't know yet where we're going to end up as far as expenses versus expenditures versus income. The tour of homes, as Robin will report later, is coming up, and that'll be a significant source of income for us. So George will provide an update next month, and then certainly by the end of the year in January, we'll have a good full report of where we fell with revenue versus expenses. The committees are meeting and working on their budget proposals. We have, for the most part, two types of expenses. One are fixed expenses, such as our $66,000 mortgage. We have the administration expenses, preparation of taxes, all those different kinds of things are kind of our fixed expenses. And then we have our budget, our committee budget requests that are more discretionary and things that we like to fund. Our grant program, improvements at the parks, all of those types of things. So right now, again, the committees are working on submitting their budget requests. So by the year end, we'll be voting on our budget actually next month. And that is it for the treasurer's report. The next thing we have on the agenda is the planning committee report. And Jack White, a member of the planning committee, is going to handle the first two items. And I apologize, there's a typo on the agenda. The first item under the variance applications, it should be 1079 North Highland. So Jack, do you want to come up and...
Sure, I can do it from here if that's okay with everybody.
Sure. Well, I think for the camera, maybe they can't see it.
I'll come right up.
Thank you.
Mr. Pinkney, why don't you come?
Can I add a correction too? My number is,
You said it was
last
new.
four digits is 3592. So it's 404-227-3592. Just got the number.
Thank you, Ellie.
My God, thank
This
you.
is Todd Pinkney from 1079 Highland, and served 4 years.
Wasn't much of an introduction. I didn't get set up, Jack. I thought you were gonna stall for me for a second.
I can elaborate. I'm seeking a 4-foot variance on the eastern setback, and so now the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Since I don't have a podium, I'll set this up here. I'd like to talk about it for a minute and then maybe walk it around if that's okay. It's a pretty straightforward variance in that it's just a single request. It's the request to take the northern required 7-foot setback from a single-family house to 4 feet. There's a house on the lot presently. That house will be torn down and a new construction house will be put in place. I'm here representing builder Butch Holland, who represents the owners of the property. He's building the new home for them, people who will actually live in the house. And the reason why the variance is being asked for is the lot's smaller than what the typical lot, or at least the required lot sizes would call for under this zoning. And so initially when we started, or when I say we, I'm speaking of course for Butch and the homeowner, but when we started looking at where structures like accessory structures or garages were going to be placed, pretty quickly saw that it was going to start to take up a lot of the backyard. Particularly, there's a 43-inch oak tree in the back corner that both the current homeowner and adjacent homeowners generally would like to not impact. And so fairly quickly the conversation became, how do we create parking? And so the idea is to do drive-under parking on the south side of the lot. And in order to get the radius that you need to be able to actually enter the house underneath, the idea is to shift the house 3 feet to the north. So that's the variance in its simplest form. We met with the planning committee informally during the previous cycle, the original on the calendar for the last meeting, and met with Jack and a couple other people, had some good questions, comments. We deferred. We went back and hired an arborist because we had some ideas and some things, but we wanted to talk to folks who knew. And hired an arborist, did an arborist report, and really got a firm answer on some of the questions about trees, and particularly what we could do to make sure that we did not impact the 43-inch oak. So we did that. We met informally again, and we tweaked just a few more things. Jack had some good ideas, and then we went to the formal meeting last week at the planning committee, and if I say this incorrectly, tell me, Jack, but generally they voted to support. A couple more changes were asked that we make, and I've made those changes, just submitted them to the city today, just to have them stamped so that there would be proof that they were actually made part of the package. They don't impact the location of the house, the square footage of the house doesn't move whatsoever, but we have added notation on the site plan that we'll do the filtration systems that are required by the city anyway, but we've called them out and explicitly said that we would do them, and some landscaping up near the front of the house to help direct and mitigate any water flow that would come off of the driveway. So we've done that. We also submitted and stamped the copies of the owner support letters, and we have, I believe, both of the adjacent owners on either side available here tonight. They've written a letter of support. So I probably left something out. Certainly can answer any questions. People want to know what it looks like usually first, so I guess you have a copy of this package because it's the same one that I did submit, and I've got ones I can hand out as well.
What's the nearest cross street to this?
Kentucky is to the north. This is almost directly across from the church where the planning committee meets, just up from the fire station. And let me mention also that the house currently is in the setback on the south side, and the house that is going to be built is actually in a smaller footprint than the house that exists right now. In the rear, that would be the north. Let me show you the side.
Rear is the east. I misspoke. Your variance is on the north. You're correct.
Right. So let's get this set correctly. So, let me hand a few of these out. This will make it easier.
Well, I think we got a good one here. I really.
Okay. All right. Well, so by doing the drive-under again, in the rear of the house where the house sits now, the new house will sit exactly there. Of course, it will be 3 feet further to the north. We've also agreed, I should mention on the trees, to do a 2-year maintenance plan by a certified arborist. clear out the branches that are dead or dying, remove any concrete in the driveway on the north-hand side by hand. And everybody seems to think that we have a pretty good plan in place. I'm happy to answer any questions or.
So I think we were very pleased. It took an inordinate amount of time, but it wound up being an inordinate amount because it was a good result. The 43-inch oak tree, which was a huge tree, is going to have concrete pulled off under its root zone that's been there for years. That'll be taken out by hand. The ordinance, the arborist has surveyed every tree. 2 trees will be lost in putting the driveway on the south side. There'll be recompense paid on those. The driveway will stop well short of another significant group of trees in the right rear at the end of the driveway. So all that will be proposed. Both neighbors are here and have agreed with this, and I think this is going to work out very well. So I would urge the board to support this.
The recommendation of the planning committee was positive.
Yes, with conditioned, well, it's not conditioned, but it reflects the 4-foot, new 4-foot variance on the north side, my area and right. Neighbors are notified, and the stormwater ordinance will apply, so they'll more than take care of that.
Are there any questions for the applicant or the planning committee about this variance? Okay, we have started instituting a straw vote, giving the audience members an opportunity to vote. So we'll go ahead and do a straw vote on this variance, and then the board will take their vote. So among you all, whoever would like to participate in the straw vote, who votes to recommend approval of the variance? Can you raise your hands a little higher? Thank you. Is that 16? Okay, 16. Are there any members here opposed to the variance? Okay, so our straw vote is 16 in favor, 0 opposed. Okay, we'll now have a motion for the board. I guess Jess, as a member of the planning committee, do you want to make the motion?
Sure, I move to approve move to recommend approval of V16-239. No conditions or conditions on the site plan expansion deed?
It's not even conditioned on, because the NPU is not doing, the VCA is not doing that anymore.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, sorry, second, yes.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, so it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
The next one is V16-232, 834 Claymont. Chris, the floor is yours.
Good evening.
Good evening.
More evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, a little bit better. As Jack mentioned, my name is Chris Richardson. My wife Dominique Richardson's here as well. We're new to the Virginia-Highland community, so thank you for giving us the opportunity this evening. Essentially what we're looking for and seeking variance on is a 4-foot or a 3-foot setback, so 4-foot relief on the east side of our property for an accessory structure, a detached garage, which wasn't in place of the home. We purchased the property a little bit earlier in the year, but the reason why we're looking for the setback, you know, if I can, I'll give you kind of 3 bullet points, if you will. Number 1, we do, similar to the last variance you heard, we've got some large old trees on the property. We did have the arborist come out. Those trees are perfectly healthy, and we'd like to keep it that way. In order to keep those trees healthy, we do need to invade the 7-foot setback on the east side of the property. You know, so that was kind of first and foremost. If we're thinking secondly, you know, if you think about the structure that we're proposing, we are going to keep the architecture of the home intact, and I've actually got plans here for all the board members as well as anybody else who would like to see them. But we are looking to keep the architecture of the original home structure intact with brick, stucco, as well as the board beams. So it will be a matching structure. It's not designed to stick out at all. based on the recommendation of some of the city members, we have adjusted height. We've pulled down the height about 3 feet from its original design. We've also pulled in square footage pretty significantly. I think the original square footage was a 24 by 24 on the first and second floor. We've now pulled it down to a 22 on the second half, and roughly 380 square feet on the top half to meet the 30% accessory structural rule. So we have made some adjustments to the structure already. Probably the last thing that I talked about, is the fact for a need for this structure. Obviously, looking to have a garage on property, but obviously with my job, it does require me to have a number of off hours meetings, conference calls on the other side of the world. So, a need to have that business attached to my home was pretty big, but obviously the major thing that we're discussing here tonight is that variance on the east side, which is an intention to keep the trees alive and well. So with that, I'd open it up to the floor to any questions that you may have.
The agenda says a two-story home, it should say a two-story accessory structure.
It should, indeed. So a couple of notes on this. This was much more extensive variance request, and as Chris and Dominique pointed out, they were able to get this reduced in order to avoid having to exceed the accessory structure limit in the back. So we appreciated that, because that is not a area that anybody in this community has been traditionally very eager to see to go down that. So I appreciate your effort in getting that down, saving the trees, getting away from the trees. It's a highly desirable move as well, and we'll correct that wording there. So they've gone to some trouble. They have not been back to the city with this. They redrew it, got it in today. So we've done this before, but there's a motion to approve that should be made conditioned on filing this plan in this coming week before the VNPU meeting next Monday. And we would recommend approval.
And one thing I did mention is the fact that we do have approval letters from all 4 of our immediately adjacent neighbors that would be impacted.
It's only 4 because they're across from the public land amendment.
So the city knows that you're withdrawing the second and third variance request?
Correct. We notified Susan Johnson today that actually notified her on Friday.
Well, Susan's, of course, the expediter. This needs to be refiled to conform with
The site plan needs
the
to,
new site plan, and the variance request needs to be modified.
right, we'll need to get an amended application. So any of your neighbors that may be here, the city will probably send, when they send their notification, it'll have all 3 requests on it. Just know that we're not asking for the last 2.
Are there any questions related to this variance? No? Okay, we'll go ahead and do a straw vote before the board's vote. So for the straw vote, all those in favor of recommending approval, please show with a show of hands.
I got all of them.
Okay, we'll go with 11. Okay, so we have the straw vote 11 in favor. Are there any opposed to this variance? Okay, 0 opposed for the straw vote. Okay, can we have a motion on this variance application?
Move to recommend approval of B16-232 conditioned on filing the plan that was presented tonight with the city before the.
Jess, if you can, say just to copy Debbie's point with regard only to the side yard variance. Is the sole piece being requested and being approved?
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next, oh, yeah, we have one more item. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
And we have one more item on the variances. I can go ahead and do this one. There was an item regarding V16-277 at 853 Adair, and the application has been deferred 1 month at the request of the applicant. So we'll be revisiting this issue next month. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to liquor licenses. Jack is going to present the liquor license
So
application.
is John here? There you are, sir.
We're
Sorry.
Jeff.
Sorry.
Jeff.
Jeff, excuse me. Well, we spoke on the phone.
Right,
Sir, the
right,
floor
right.
is yours. If you'll, this is Jeff Jordana from 8 Arms LLC at 710 Poncelet Avenue down across from the old Ford Factory Apartments.
Actually, I'm Jeff, this is Non Lee, and he's the, he's my partner and chef, and he's the chef. The other chef, Angus Brown, some may have heard of as well, is actually cooking, so he couldn't do anything that he wanted to. We opened, I guess, 2 months ago, and everything's going great, and everybody wants liquor, so we're gonna get that going. Non brought some menus for you guys to look at if you haven't got a chance to get in there, but we invite you to come check it out. And I'm having a lot of fun meeting everybody in the neighborhood. It's been going great. It's been busy, so we're good. We're happy. So,
So the application's correct, the parking adds up, they have the required parking, and so the standard questions, as I mentioned to you, any previous violations of the liquor code and any other?
no.
And what will your training program be for your servers?
We use the tip certification.
Is all the parking directly,
It is on the lot.
Yeah,
They
I'm
have it. I think they have .34 extra spaces, so take your cycle down.
ingress and egress from both Ponce and from,
no, you can't get out on that top end where there's a guardrail in the way, so you can't get out to that exit rail. I don't think there's ever not 3 cars sitting at that light.
thanks.
Okay, are there any other questions for?
I do have a question. Do you play music or is, well, there may be issues with noise?
I don't expect that any issues. We've never had complaints at our other restaurants, so I don't, that should be an issue. This is a dinner, lunch, breakfast, coffee place, so we haven't, never gotten in trouble with anybody, so I think we'll be fine.
You heard the earlier discussion.
And you're welcome to come, let us know. I mean,
Is that a no? Or
That is a no, that is, there will not be, no.
Just listen.
Got it on tape?
That is a no, there won't be live.
There will not be live music, no.
I haven't been there, it should be obvious, unfortunately. Is the concept a coffee shop or is it a restaurant?
It basically starts out as coffee shop and it does lunch and dinner as well, so. You can, yeah, do the menus. We're doing brunch on Saturday and Sunday as well. The sign, when we put it out there first, it said coffee shop, so everybody knows coffee shop, and it really is a lunch. It's a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and brunch on the weekends. Yeah, come check it out, please. Yeah. And thank you, appreciate that.
So Jennifer, we'll need a board recommendation on this if you want to take one.
Okay,
Because we didn't come to the planning.
okay, so what was the recommendation of the planning
We
commission?
didn't hear this at the planning.
Oh, that's right, I apologize, I forgot. Okay, so, any other questions from either the board or any other?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
The motion do not propose.
Okay, a second? Okay, all in favor of not opposing? Excuse me? Oh, yes, well, all opposed? I apologize, I should have done a straw vote beforehand, but we'll do it now. So for the straw vote, is there, all of those in favor to not oppose this application, please raise your hand. Okay, 8 in favor of not opposing. All those opposed to not opposing. Raise your hands. Okay, none, so our straw vote is 0 on that. Okay, thank you very much.
All right,
Good luck.
thank you, appreciate it. Come see
Thank you.
us.
Our final liquor application is from Tuscan at your table.
Yeah.
Transit Center, and, are they here? You are here. I thought you all have the floor. This is the former Toscano space on.
So, I think probably any of you know or do just kind
Sons. And so the idea behind our business is somewhat similar. It will be an Italian deli market. Luigi's been a chef for about 25 years in the industry. And so we'll be selling prosciutto, cheese, Italian products. Also, we'd like to continue selling wine. So we have our temporary wine sales license approved, and hoping to get the permanent one approved as well.
So the standard questions for you are the same, any liquor city of Atlanta liquor code violations at any other location in your career? What is your training program?
Management training, so anyone who appears to be younger than 35 would be asked for identification. And either Luigi or I will be on site, at least for the initial period at all times, so we would be overseeing employees as well.
I turn it back to you.
Okay, are there any questions for these applicants?
Would you be selling anything other than bottled wine?
We might consider malt beverages in the future, but for the moment, only wine.
But not poured drink, just.
We cannot pour, right, it's only for off premises, right?
This does come, they inherit the Toscano's ability to have wine tastings, however, at this site.
With an educational program. And we're hoping to open in about 2 to 3 weeks.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and do the straw vote first this time. I guess we'll do it in the same format. All of those in favor of not opposing this application, please raise your hands. Nine? Okay. Nine in favor of not opposing. All those opposed to not opposing, raise your hand. 0. So that's those are the results of our straw vote. Now we'll move to the board. Do I have a motion, please?
I move not to, not to oppose approval.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous, show of hands. Motion passes. Thank you very much, and good luck. Thank you. Welcome to the neighborhood, thanks. Okay, the next item on our agenda is an update on the Park Atlanta contract, and Councilman Juan has already given a good update on where the city is on the contract and the passage of the new contract. And Jess is going to give a report on some of the key issues that we've been focusing on as the Civic Association and the Planning Committee related to the parking contract.
So yeah, Alex gave a great summary and tried to take good notes for our minutes on how he explained the new contract. Hopefully be different than the old. One of the things that I was wanting to hear and that we kind of touched on in the past was an ability to move or shift the parking spaces from one location to another. Because there's some spots on North Highland that, in terms of the streetscape, from about St. Charles up to Drury, you could really improve that streetscape. But in some instances, you'd have to lose maybe 1 or 2 Park Atlanta spaces. So it's something that, like he said, parking serves a public good. It should be something that's serves to keep people kind of moving but still using your businesses. It shouldn't be a negative influence on the businesses, and it certainly has been in the past. So still working with them to remove the burden of those spaces and the burden of the overzealous enforcement that we're still going to be working very closely with them on. But very glad and grateful that the contract has been revised in the way that it has.
Thank you, Jess. The next item, very briefly, is the Monroe Drive Complete Streets Project. There was a big meeting at Grady High School a few months ago with the Renew Atlanta team that's in charge of studying and implementing the Monroe Complete Streets Project. Regan Hammond, who is the project manager for Renew Atlanta for the Monroe Complete Streets, will be here next month. So she's coming to our meeting next month to provide an update on where they are in the process. And as Alex indicated in his report, it sounds like right now, the next big community-wide meeting where Renew Atlanta will present their proposals is tentatively scheduled for January 26th. So we'll make sure that we keep an eye on that date, but Regan Hammond will be here next month to provide some additional information on the Renew Atlanta process.
Just a quick caveat on that one. So we hear a lot from people about the safety of Monroe and the lack of safety on Monroe. And I think it's important to understand that our neighborhood has a lot of history, and I think we've got a lot of people who are familiar with the concept of a road diet and the way that it would make traffic smoother and slower and in a way that makes things flow. And other neighborhoods might not have had that kind of experience that we did. So it's a good opportunity in January to kind of share our knowledge as a neighborhood with why we think that that would create a safer, more livable place. So just something to keep on your radar that.
That meeting on the 26th.
Yeah, the 26th. It would be good to have a strong Virginia-Highland presence at that meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jess. Okay, the next item, Robin, we have an update on Fire Station 19.
The project is still in its very, very early stages, so there's not much to report on that, but we still have about a $30,000 fundraising gap for the project, and we have a couple of key fundraisers this month. On the third is the Breakfast with Santa at Osteria. It's a great event. People love that event, so they're taking reservations now. Hurry, because they do sell out. And then we have Santa-thon at the fire station. That's a joint event by lots of folks. And so again, they take reservations on that. There's a site for that to sign up. And Rick Shea does have plans to do Morningside Mile again this year. And we will also have another booth at Summerfest to raise funds. And even so, we'll still be looking at some additional opportunity to raise funds to totally fund what's left of the project. Can you tell we've been budgeting like everybody else?
Thank you, Robin. And back to Jess quickly for a T-Splost update.
Yay, T-Splost. So T-Splost passed, as Alex said, and that funds the Renew Atlanta infrastructure bond. That was mostly for maintenance and, fixing potholes and fixing things that were broken. T-Splost is another, set of funding for more projects that are on transportation lists that are for improvements. For our neck of the woods, the one that I saw was a North Highland Complete Street project. So what that means is Complete Streets is a bit amorphous. It's different for every street because you're finding the best fit for that street. And so you can't say a complete street equals X. What it looks at is the best way to accommodate car traffic, bike traffic, pedestrian traffic, all in one, whatever limited, right of way they're given. So that's on there for T-Splost with North Highland, almost the entirety of North Highland, not just the Virginia-Highland section. So I imagine that'll take a few years to put together, but it'll be good eventually.
Okay.
And we would expect to wrap our streetscape aspirations into that project, or separate from that?
That's a good question. Hopefully we can get streetscaping sooner than that, but sure. It's always good to put funding sources together when you've got, different pots of money you can put together for one great big project.
Yeah, if I may, I think the last example of Virginia-Highland's probably a good guide. It took twice as long and cost a good deal more than anybody had planned. But generally speaking, I think everybody's pretty pleased with the outcome, and if we could come up with that kind of transformative outcome along the Atkins Park piece, and it would probably really be an extraordinary opportunity. And this is the time to do it, when the money's there and the disruption is going on. Try to do it later is probably a non-starter.
Okay, thanks. Next is Parks Committee, David Brandenburger.
So I guess first off, and I've brought some flyers here, we are initiating a new effort or a second effort to actually sell more bricks at North Highland Park at North Highland St. Charles. So when the original plan went through, I think about 400 were sold. As construction continued, there were about 105 additional spaces for additional bricks. So there's about 45 bricks remaining to be purchased, and the money directly goes to pay down the debt. They're $100 each or more, and you can obviously engrave the brick with anything proper that you would like. 3 lines, 14 characters per line. So I would encourage every board member, for those that haven't, to actually invest and support the effort, and also the general public will be publicizing this. And for those that have already bought those bricks that maybe have not been installed yet, the plan is to get those sold and installed with construction crews by spring of next year. So there are some people that have bought over the last year or so that are concerned that they have not been installed, so we finally decided to go ahead with Campbell Capner's help to actually complete the assembly of the bricks. Outside of that, we're continuing with the community building grant at John Howell Park. Right now we're getting updated final bids from several different contractors to perform much of the hardscaping that will be occurring there over and through the rest of this year, and probably actually until fall of next year. We're always looking for in-kind assistance, so if anyone has ideas on in-kind assistance, basically would be volunteers and donations, and that actually helps to reduce the cash outlay that the general fund of VHCA actually pays for our portion of the matching grant. So we're open to any information or any ideas on that. You can submit that to me directly through parks at baja.org. With that, I know Mark has specifically come with some questions about parks. Do you want to hold that? And I don't know if we're going to get a police officer here or not, so.
It looks like they did your by now.
Yeah, well, there's 2 things that I wanted to talk about, so I don't know if you want me to do that during new business, or, but I can talk about the park now.
Defer to Jennifer.
Sure, that's fine, we're on parks.
Go ahead and introduce yourself as well.
Okay, I'm Mark Ruggles. I live at 1085 St. Charles, and first of all, I'd like to thank all of you, especially Jack and Dave, because I've talked to you guys a lot about the park, and I don't, you guys do this every day. I show up to complain. And I think you guys have done a great job with the park. There's things going on in the park that when you live across the street from it or right next to it are very disturbing. There's people that go there on a daily basis. Some of them spend all day there, some of them are in and out. But I'm going to be blunt. They urinate, defecate, smoke, drink, and throw all of their trash and cigarette butts on the ground, and I hate it. And I have to look at it, and it's not the house that I bought anymore. It used to be a vacant lot. It's a much more beautiful place now. But this draws them there because there's power for phones, which I think you shut off. There's places to sit, and they can kind of hide in some of the corners. They keep their stashes of things behind trees everywhere. And I have found that sometimes, every now and then, it gets addressed, and
Right on time.
Oh, really? Wow, that's great. Good evening. I'm Lieutenant Floyd with the City of Atlanta Police Department. Assigned to the Zone 6 precinct, which is a precinct that services the Virginia-Highlands community. And I am here to report on crime. I see some changes,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
On the board, so I guess congratulations to those, and good luck. But of course, like I said, I'm Lieutenant Floyd. Overall, in the Virginia-Highlands community, we have seen crime begin to trend upward. Of course, I mean, it's the holiday season, and that is consistent with the crime, with the season. We start to see some of the crime trends begin to go up. We did have a couple of, well, our main crime category is our vehicle break-ins. That's what we struggle with, within the Virginia-Highlands community.